is the recognition that simply mechanically processing repeated cases from person after person who has the same issue doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to say, okay, what can we do to address where these cases are coming from, and what can we do to help connect these people with services so when they're going to where they're going, they won't wind up in the same problem again.
You're listening to the Family Innocence Project radio program on Relevant Radio. The Family Innocence Project is a non-profit organization dedicated to keeping families out of court, resolving conflicts and injustices peacefully. We can be reached at www.familyinnocence.com or 651-783-5878. We'll be right back. For months, you've heard how important it is to avoid probate court with the right will and trust. Hi, I'm attorney Michelle MacDonald, and you should be concerned. I want the best for my clients, but frankly, many don't understand the perils and delays of probate court and how a simple will and trust could help you and your family. For 25 years, we have made estate plans, elder and family law, and mediation easy to understand. We'll help your family avoid court altogether. That's just one area that we can help you with. Feel secure in protecting your family's legal needs.
Protect your family from the delays of probate and other family law issues. Call for a free consultation at 651-222-4400. That's 651-222-4400. Michelle MacDonald and her clients founded the Family Innocence Project. Discover their mission by visiting FamilyInnocence.org.
You can also visit relevantradio.com, keyword law. Welcome back to the Family Innocence Project radio program on Relevant Radio. I'm attorney Michelle MacDonald, and our guests include Judge Bruce Peterson, who is instrumental in the co-parent court. We're talking about keeping families out of court or keeping courts out of family. I'm not sure what, but it's amazing, Judge Peterson, what you're doing in the co-parent model. And from what I understand, you're dealing with couples who have children. Some of them are supporting their children. Some of them are not with money. And in addition to, you get them and they already have their support orders. So what they're doing after that is trying to create a family structure, correct?
Yes, I think that's fair.
Okay. So working in the Couples on the Brink project, which is something that Bill Doherty is doing at the university, these couples might have been on the brink like immediately, because maybe it was not a very short-term relationship, a pregnancy occurred, or maybe they had children and then broke up, or maybe they never even lived together. How does Couples on the Brink fit in?
Well, just to be clear, Michelle, co-parent court is a problem-solving court providing services to low-income unmarried parents. The Couples on the Brink project is a completely unrelated project involving services to divorcing parents. And it grew out of some thoughts I had several years ago about our court's natural emphasis on moving people through the system quickly, again, without asking why they're there.
Exactly, natural emphasis, right.
And I wondered, based upon some of the couples that I'd seen who seemed quite comfortable with each other, and they would sit in my office and solve problems and work together and talk about their children with great affection, I wondered if in all those situations divorce was really necessary, and if there had been a full exploration of other alternatives. And as judges, we're somewhat uncomfortable to talk with parties about that. We sort of figure they come to us for divorce and we'll oblige. So I wanted to look into this further, and I asked Bill Doherty, who is a family therapist and researcher and scholar and writer at the University of Minnesota,
And did you just call him up and ask him, or did you, because of you have heard of him, or?
I just called him up and asked him.
Wow.
I'd read his stuff. He's very well written. He's written a lot of things in the marriage field and divorce field. I heard him speak. He was clearly very knowledgeable, very intelligent, very thoughtful, had a big heart about families. And I called him up and I asked him what was known about the potential for reconciliation among couples who were already in the divorce system. I mean, I was only seeing people where a divorce had been filed and they were in the process of resolving their disputes.
So this was in family court. You're the judge in family court. Somebody,
Yes.
Again, I remind our listeners that a family court, you're in family court because you've either received a lawsuit or served a lawsuit on a family member. And so you were in family court, and you were recognizing this, that some of these families might be able to reconcile.
You know, I spoke earlier about the barriers and hardships faced by children of unmarried parents. There are also a lot of barriers and hardships faced by the children of divorcing parents.
Absolutely.
It's a very difficult, stressful experience for a child. And again, many children come through it just fine, but by and large, the children of divorcing parents face much higher risk of negative outcomes in a variety of ways. And so if divorce can be avoided, it ought to be. And so I called Dr. Doherty and asked him what was known. And he thought about it, and I can't remember if he called me back or what, but eventually said not much, that nobody really had done much work on this.
Really? Wow.
So he did some survey research over the next couple of years at our divorce education classes, asked people questions after the class in a written survey form about did they think there was hope for their marriage, or was it totally beyond hope? Would they be interested in reconciliation services? And a variety of questions along those lines. And I brought his, the research conclusions were that about 12%, in about 12% of the cases, both couples believed that it was possible still to save the marriage. A much higher percentage, of course, in about 1/3 of the cases, one spouse did. That's often true in marriages. One spouse is much more hopeful than the other. And there was an interest in reconciliation in about 10% of the couples, and again, with both parents, and again a much higher percentage with one parent. So even in couples who had gone to the point of seeing lawyers, getting a divorce filed, starting to move through the court system, meeting with the judge, which is the only time that that I would see them, there would be a significant percentage of parents, and he was working with parents, where reconciliation was still an option, and so. That led through a long series of planning meetings and funding sources and this and that to the establishment of the Couples on the Brink project at the University of Minnesota, which is developing best practices for therapists and professionals and others working with couples who are in the divorce process or about to be in the divorce process to help them make sure they're making the right decision. And there's a couple of specialized services that Bill and his colleagues have developed for couples in that situation.
Yeah, one thing I've heard you say is that divorce is not the solution to the problem, but it's seen that way almost instinctively. You're having a marital problem. Better get a divorce, and that's the people I see. It's almost I call it the tyranny of the urgent. Either they've been served papers or they want to serve papers quickly. That's the solution to the problem, and that isn't so.
Well, I think we have kind of some cultural themes at work here. That we're kind of a use it and discard it culture, and we're used to moving on when things aren't working out for us, or getting a new product when we want something new. And we also have a very visible divorce system. There are a lot of divorce courts. There's lots of divorce lawyers. There's lots of people who've been divorced. There's lots of people talking about divorce. And I think you're right, Michelle. I think that when people are thinking about marital problems and marital issues, it seems like a solution. It seems like it might be something that could make somebody's life better. And so I think there are people who wind up in the divorce system with perhaps not the amount of assistance, and Bill is using the term discernment, without the amount of discernment that might be appropriate. And one of the services he's developed, which did not exist before, is something called discernment counseling. It's not marital counseling. It's not reconciliation. It's a structured process of looking at a relationship, looking at where it is, looking at what the problems are, identifying alternatives, and helping the couple come to a joint decision, if possible, about what is the best course of action. Perhaps it is divorce, but it also might be some remedial activities for one of the spouses, alcohol issues, gambling issues. There might be affairs involved, that the parties can make some agreements about how to address them together. And so discernment is one thing that Bill and his colleagues are introducing into the divorce process, and also helping to teach to other practitioners, both in the psychology field and clergy, who deal a lot with couples in trouble.
Yeah, so how do we take so that's one way to take the adversarial system out, the adversarial nature of the process, the do unto others before they do unto you golden rule that you see sometimes in families, because actually you're able to go somewhere and say, look, let's do a discernment process first. Let's work on the real problem solving, the alcohol issues, the affair, whatever is bothering you. Maybe somebody has I've even seen marriages break up over workaholism, or just somebody not doing the dishes. It's very, very simple, and so it's like you say, it's a cultural shift. Don't call your attorney first before the other side does it. Call somebody that can help solve the problems. Discern whether divorce is the best approach, correct?
I absolutely. I think that goes along with your theme about the golden rule, that rather than trying to do something, who's going to serve the papers first, let's see if we can do to each other what we would hope would be done to us, which is talk to the other person and agree to a process to look at this carefully. And, Michelle, I should add that one of the things Bill has done is helped groups of lawyers work on their protocols, that when people show up in their office, to try to understand, has there been adequate exploration of other alternatives? Has there been true discernment that's taking place? Or is somebody doing something to someone else rather than helping the couple together to understand what the problem is?
As you know, and we can tell our listeners, the Family Innocence Project provides trained family innocence advocates. They look at the entire family situation. The husband doesn't get an advocate, or the wife doesn't get an advocate. They both get one advocate. Sometimes there's a preference to have two advocates, but they're all working together for the family. That's the issue. I heard Steve Erickson, who's been a mediator, practically invented mediation over 30 years ago, say, and he's an attorney, I found it to be unethical to represent one family member against another. And that really struck me, because that's what we do. When somebody comes into an attorney's office, if we even want to send them over to Bill Daugherty for discernment counseling, they're there because they either think they're going to get sued. It's usually a secret conversation about what their rights might be. The other side typically does not know about it. And so it's almost like what we have to start in our culture is do unto others before they do unto you. Go to Bill Daugherty before somebody else does.
Well, one of the missions of the Couples on the Brink project, and it's now being funded permanently with a small surcharge on the marriage license fee, so it's going to be around, is to promote best practices throughout the professions on dealing with couples on the brink. That is discernment, identification of alternatives, sort of trying to have a second look at the knee-jerk reaction to do something precipitous or unilateral to somebody else. And so I think one of the missions of the Couples on the Brink project is to create a cultural change around initiating a divorce.
And it's a huge cultural change. A huge cultural change because there is always the fear. Fear operating in the adversary process. And even in the discernment process, which is, I assume, a consent process, you need both the couple operating in love and not fear, because if they're operating in fear, expecting an adversary process to gain rights or gain advantages in a divorce, that just won't work.
Michelle, you make a good point. The discernment process is a consent process. Both parties obviously have to agree to go through it. But Bill has also developed another service which I think hadn't been known before, and we've talked a lot about it as it's evolved, called Hopeful Spouse Coaching. There may be some other terms used also. Often in a divorce, one party is initiating the divorce, and the other party doesn't want it to happen. And that can be the source of a great deal of pain. It can be the source of a great deal of delay, inefficiency, vindictiveness, problems in the court system, because oftentimes the party who doesn't want the divorce tries to slow things down and make things as difficult as possible. And so one of the things Bill has been doing is working with some services and some protocols for the hopeful spouse to be the best they can be. In a situation like that, the worst thing you can do is be vindictive and make problems as difficult as possible. The best thing you can do is be your most appealing and attractive self.
Exactly, yes. You want to look good in front of that judge.
Not in front of the judge, in front of the other person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. So, in other words, in the discernment process, the goal is to, I guess it's the golden rule, to do unto others as you would like them to do to you.
To be clear, Michelle, the discernment counseling process is a set process of consent, based on consent by two individuals. It involves 5 sessions of discernment. Hopeful spouse coaching is something for individuals. It's not part of the discernment. It would involve one party at a time.
Okay, I see. Well, you're listening to the Family Innocence Project radio program on Relevant Radio. The Family Innocence Project is a non-profit organization dedicated to keeping families out of court, resolving conflicts and injustices peacefully. You can learn more about the Co-Parent Court or Couples on the Brink project by visiting www.familyinnocence.org or calling 651-783-5878. That's 651-783-5878. We'll be right back.
The relevant alternative to the secular media. Why don't we believe that God loves us?
So much of Catholic life, I think, is focused on sin instead of on grace. And we always forget that grace is first, not sin. Are we at a point now where opinion is to be criminalized, where you are to be persecuted for an opinion that other people do not agree with?
What does this say about our culture and where people are?
If you could impress upon them one thing about marriage, what would it be?
To get out of ourselves and to truly give ourselves to another person without any expectation for anything in return. By doing that, we maximize the possibility that the other person really feels loved and will want to give us what we want.
Morning air.
Inner life.
Go ask your father.
On call.
Drew Mariani.
A closer look.
This is Relevant Radio.
Welcome back to the Family Innocence Project radio program and Relevant Radio. I'm attorney Michelle MacDonald, and our guests include Judge Bruce Peterson, who's leader of a team that founded the Co-Parent Court. It's a specialty problem-solving court that he would like to see all over the country. And also Barb Zorn, who's vice president of the Family Innocence Project. She is a family innocence advocate, and she's also a child that was in the family court system. It was actually not the family court system, Barb, correct? It was, you were in the foster care system as a young child.
Yes.
So you, more than anyone, can have that perspective of being a child in the system, having been, I believe your mother passed away, and then your father was a severe alcoholic, and you and your siblings were a part of the foster care system. Barb, let's talk about the emotions of it all. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the children and their emotions, but I think what you see mostly in co-parent court and on Couples on the Brink are the parents and not the children.
Sure. I refer to this as our throwaway society. I mean, we're so quick to just get rid of something that doesn't work rather than fixing it, working on fixing it. And the kids in a relationship are often the ones that end up suffering. They're the ones that are bounced back and forth from mom to dad. They don't know where they should be. And as Judge Peterson talked about, the lasting harm, damage to these children. I mean, there's so many problems that come up from being part of a divorced family. And I'd love to hear more about that and the emotions that you see in the court systems with that.
Barb, you're for what I know of you, you're a lovely person, and I think you're a great advertisement for the success of the foster care system. Because for what I know of you, you're a happy, functioning, lovely person, and I would love to hear more about your story sometime. I'm sure it's quite compelling. But there's no doubt that the foster care system and the family court system and divorce and being raised by unmarried parents in difficult circumstances is hard for children. And I think there's growing awareness about the impact of adverse childhood experiences on children's resiliency. I've just been reading a book called How Children Learn by someone named Paul Tuff, who pulls together all the latest research on how children learn. It's not a matter of cognitive ability so much as character, resiliency, curiosity, optimism, those sorts of character traits that help children succeed in the world. And those are the very things which do not develop in situations where the child is exposed to a lot of stress, different sorts of chaotic experiences, family changes, breakups, transiency, different schools, obviously abuse, neglect, those sorts of things, definitely. But I think one of the things we have to do is try to think of systems that create as much stability, predictability, nurturing, safety for children as possible. And that applies to all the systems in which children are involved.
Now, you talked about discernment, counseling, and hopeful spouse coaching. Do you have some programs in place with Dr. Doherty for the children also?
That's a good question. I have not worked with him on that issue, and I think more needs to be done there.
I'm going to cite not. I'm going to cite. You brought up children.
Let me just back up for just a second. I think our our philosophy with co-parent court is exactly what I've suggested, which is the extent you can bring two parents fully functioning, people whose own lives are in order, who have a plan together to raise their child, you can create more stability, more certainty, less relationship churning, less economic and social disruption. You're going to reduce the stress. You're going to reduce the adverse childhood experiences that a child is experiencing, and that child will develop more resiliency and the sort of character traits which are helpful to success for a child.
And like you said, the legal system strives for finality to prevent the endless bickering in court hearings, and the judges try to decide a case once and for all.
Well, I think one of the problems with legal proceedings addressing family issues is that they often miss the point. One of the things that I was just taken aback when I first began serving in family court. I had no experience as a family lawyer. I hadn't been involved in the family systems or divorce systems. The intensity of the emotions that were expressed by people towards each other, the hostility, the anger, the fear, the violence. We deal with great numbers of domestic abuse cases in our Hennepin County Family Court, and so it's apparent that intimate relationships create very strong feelings in people. And I've talked to a lot of mental health professionals about it. I think there's a number of reasons for it, but basically, human beings have wounds. We have childhood experiences that have been difficult for us. And we make do, we forge ahead with our lives, but then we wind up in situations which recreate some of the aspects of those wounds. And our significant other has the ability to press on those wounds and bring back that level of pain and fear that a child feels. And so intimate relationships are continually bringing up emotions of the strength and intensity and speed of a child's fears and emotions. And then to combine that with a process where people feel coerced, where they're losing control, they feel fearful, you have a whole set of emotions that make resolution of the underlying issues in a legal setting very difficult.
And who do you have to forgive more in one day than a family member, the people that you live with?
Well, Barb said it, that we have kind of a throwaway culture. You see, one might think that, for a thoughtful person with cultural support, that the pain you feel in an intimate relationship might be a useful guide to where your wounds are and what has happened to you that has caused you to feel this intensity. And it can be the most healing experience. That's why intimate relationships pose the most challenges, but they also have the greatest potential for healing of us as individuals. And unfortunately, the adversary system turns emotions into aggression and puts a premium on attacking rather than self-reflection about what's behind all this to begin with.
And I'll end quickly by saying that the Supreme Court, in a case cited Kings 3, 16 to 28, and said it's difficult to adjudicate with the wisdom of King Solomon when both parties are willing to split the baby. Children should not become the pawn in the wars of adults. When the law states that the best interests of the children should guide the courts, then children must be the beneficiaries of justice, not the gavel pounding out the acrimony existing between the adults. For more information, look at www.familyinnocence.org. Call 651-783-5878.